Good morning. Welcome in. Steve Robertson will join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. National Nachos Day. If you've listened to this show, you know I love them. Most people do. In fact, Jason and I were talking about it during the break. If you don't like nachos, what does that say about you? We'll go with the pork belly and chorizo nachos from Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Starkville, and Tupelo.
Ooh, chorizo on there too?
Yeah, pork belly.
Oh.
And chorizo. How's
Come
that
on.
sound?
I'm a chorizo hog.
Are you?
I love, well, no pun intended, but I love chorizo. But pork belly is delicious too, but chorizo, if I'm at a Mexican restaurant, I'd much rather get a chorizo taco, quesadilla, whatever.
Yeah.
Than just normal beef.
I'm with you.
It's way better.
I'm with you. So we'll do that. Shout out to Bulldog Burger on National Nachos Day. Steve Robertson, welcome to the show. Gene's Page, 247 Sports, the Boneyard Podcast. Steve, do you like nachos?
Oh, I love nachos. Had Frito pie last night for dinner. So it's a kind of a different take on the nacho. But yeah, I mean, how could you not like nachos? And it's like when I think about going to the Bulldog Burger Company, I usually get the spring rolls, but at times I do participate in the enjoyment of nachos.
Those spring rolls are legendary at Bulldog Burger, for sure, all three. All right, Steve, there's a massive meltdown and apathy has set in at Mississippi State. And I know we'll talk about Chris Parson later, but do you believe that there will be a coaching change in 3 weeks?
Yeah, I would certainly say it's trending in that direction. I gave everybody a day of rest yesterday. I figured everybody needed a day after, as poorly as the team played on Saturday. But, these things are fluid, as you know. It's one of those things where, a lot of times it boils down. I'm reminiscent of the Scott Strickland, Ben Howland situation. It's like you had the Rick Ray thing, and then Scott comes out and gives him the dreaded vote of confidence, and then Ben Howland becomes available. At the end of the day, Zach Selman's got a difficult decision to make. Some would say it's probably not as difficult as maybe we suggest. But you got to take care of football, period. And I support whatever decision Zach Selman makes, but I'm told that it ultimately will be his decision. What Mississippi State does with the direction of their football program.
Okay. They're not going to win this weekend. And I guess they'll beat Southern Miss, and they're not going to win the Egg Bowl. So you're looking at a 5-7 finish, Steve, for Arnett and the crew. And, it's unfortunate in this or that, but as you said, they can't risk 20-30% of the people not going to games next year, right?
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. But also, too, as you think about, what's the path from the wilderness look like? It's like if you begin to think, okay, well, you can go get a proven Power 5 coach or a guy that's got Power 5 coaching experience and perhaps can, spark a turnaround quicker, then maybe that's direction you go. And I think just about every fan would be on board with that. You want to be fair, but at the end of the day, nobody is bigger than Mississippi State. Not Zach Arnett, not Zach Selman, not Mark Keenum, not me, not you, anybody. What happens at Mississippi State, you got to take care of Mississippi State while you're on watch. And I think that's the big part of this for Zach is he hadn't been here a year, and he's already had to make two major coaching decisions and in the process of making one now.
Yeah. Steve Robertson on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Do you expect Will Rogers to play this weekend?
I won't say I expect it, but I won't rule out the possibility. He was, according to sources, he was a much better participant last week in practice. Like the week before, the things you heard is, well, he did some things, but he did a lot more in practice last week. I wouldn't rule him out as far as being available, but I wouldn't expect him to start. Now, Southern Miss, probably so, maybe so. But I think if Chris Parson goes and makes you a competitive football team on Saturday, then you've got to, consider your options.
Okay. So hold on. Let's stay on this for a second. Will Rogers can't go. Do you expect to see Chris Parson start to finish?
I expect him to take the lion's share of the snaps. If it was my decision, I think I'd probably just go with him start to finish. But I wouldn't rule out Mike Wright starting the first series. But I think in a game like this, especially with Max Johnson's health being in question right now, every possession's precious, And so, Parson brought some life to that stadium and to that team, even though the game had already ultimately been decided. And at this point, it may be time just to, hey, let's spend these last 3 ball games, preserve a red shirt, and get the kids some experience, and see how things shake out. But it gives the A&M Aggies a lot more to think about with a guy like Chris Parson, because he does have the best arm on the team, and he is more mobile than Will, and he's a better passer than Mike Wright. And I think he has the skill set to run exactly what they want to run offensively. I mean, of course, that's a tough environment to go make your first start, but you're already a double-digit underdog in the ball game. What else do you have to lose?
Right. And it looks like, did you see where it looks like Max Johnson's out with rib injury?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, and I was told yesterday, actually by a former Bulldog assistant, called me and, shared that information and said he's supposed to be evaluated on Sunday, and then Jimbo would have an update today. So, we'll see. But I watched that A&M Ole Miss game, too, and you could tell in that fourth quarter he was laboring. I mean, every single play he gets up, you can tell he's in some pain. So you wish the best for the young man. But, there's some concern that they're going to have to start a third-team quarterback transfer from Fresno State. So it may be the battle of the third-team quarterbacks this weekend. And I wouldn't expect a lot of offensive firepower from either team.
No, I don't know what Mississippi State with Chris Parson working against that A&M D. Mike Wright wouldn't move it either. So, and Will Rogers probably wouldn't have a whole lot of success, but he'd have more than the other two. I don't know if they can score, Steve. Well, I don't know how many trips you'll make past the 50. Right?
Yeah, that's been a challenge the last 3 weeks. 26 points in 3 games, you're not going to beat anybody. In the middle of that, they get that win over Arkansas. But, it's been incredibly inefficient. And, one of the things we've talked about before is, Mike Wright's not a very skilled passer. That's not a shot at the guy. That's just kind of the reality of what he is as a player. And I think people now have seen that. And there were a lot of people before that thought he was, kind of being withheld in deference to Will Rogers. But, he's just somewhat limited. And I think Parsons' natural ability exceeds both of those guys. But, that's a really tough environment. And, I'm not expecting to win this weekend, but we're going to drive down there and cover it and hope for the best.
So you're going?
Oh, absolutely.
Not going to miss one. Steve Robertson, Gene's Page, 247 Sports on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. I'm trying to think of something positive to talk about with the football program. Can you come up with anything?
Well, I think Parson gave you a little life Saturday. And in that third quarter, it was miserable, Bo. We all saw it. It was just like you knew they weren't going to be able to score, and it just felt like everything was such a struggle. And you put Parson in there, and operationally, you still had some issues. But he stood tall in the pocket and delivered some pretty impressive passes. And I don't think the kid is scared in the least. I think that, Chris Parsons is a very special player, and I think that's a guy you build your program around kind of moving forward. But, by the time he went to the ball game, there was not many people there to see it. But the ones that were there, were very, very supportive and appreciative. And that's one thing that I'll say, too. I know it wasn't a capacity crowd, but it was the best environment of the year. And maybe some of that had to do with honoring the 98 team, but I thought Bulldog fans showed up and were really loud into the ball game.
That was the highlight of the game. I was there for that. Yes, and they actually walked towards me because I was sitting in a friend of mine's suite. And so when Cheryl walked out, because it was the interlocking MSU, as you mentioned, that was kind of the theme of the weekend. And Cheryl walks out with Kevin Sluter. That was the highlight of the game. 20 minutes before the ball game. Steve, we should have all just packed up and gone home after that, right?
Well, it was pretty special, and I think a lot of it, and I even tweeted it out. It was one of those chill bump inducing moments. I thought it would be pretty cool. It was a lot more special than I expected. And just the ovation and support from the crowd was, it was pretty special. And
it was.
You like to think you could have honored the team with a better performance, but, the reality of it is Jackie Sherrill will always be beloved at Mississippi State, and the 98 team did something nobody else has ever done, in the state of Mississippi. And it was a pretty wild year, and I went back and wrote about that last week. The only team in the West they didn't beat that year was LSU, and got absolutely hammered down there, and, they lost to Kentucky and won out, and so it was a special year. It was a special moment, and those people involved in all that will always be revered at Starkville, Mississippi.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was. And Cheryl won the West in 98 and saw a lot of those players. Who was your favorite player on that 98 team?
Ashley
Steve?
Cooper. Ashley Cooper.
What a
Easily.
dude, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the edge that he played with is what kind of separated. He wasn't the biggest guy, but he was the guy that gave you 100% effort every play. And anytime you saw him line up in the slot, and especially if it was front side pressure, you knew the throw was going to come out early if they could get it off. And that's what made that Joe Lee Dunn defense so incredible, is they could man you up on the corners and force you to your second and third read. And if you had to go to that third read, the quarterback's getting hit. And Ashley Cooper just played with such reckless abandon and never, ever, ever considered his own personal safety. He just went out there and played hard, very hard brand of football. And I think he's a guy, too, that probably should never have to buy a beer when he comes home to watch a ball game.
No, he should. Was he there?
I don't know. I don't know that he was there. I didn't get a full list. But
Okay.
DeCenzo and Kevin and those guys walked him out. And, you think about all those great wins with those players. And, that's the thing that Jackie Sherrill did at Mississippi State that I don't know that anybody else ever really did, is he instilled a sense of pride. And he used to always talk about, I want our fans to be able to go to work each day and have that Mississippi State coffee mug and be able to poke their chest out a little bit. And it wasn't just lip service. Jackie actually went and did it.
Yeah. Ashley Cooper. I loved him. So why was he just a tweener, or was the NFL just not spread out enough at that time for him to make it, or what? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think, his size was the issue, and he wasn't very big, and he wasn't exceptionally fast. That's what made Joe Lee Dunn so special too, is he knew how to put those guys that were good athletes in position to make plays. And that's the thing. You go back and you look. I mean, even Tim Nelson. I mean, one of the biggest plays that year was that pick six at Oxford. That the game was already decided. That was the exclamation point. I mean, Tim Nelson probably couldn't have played anywhere else in the country on the Power 5 level, but he fit at Mississippi State. He fit in Joe Lee Dunn's scheme, and it was more fun to even watch State play defense that those few years. And it wasn't just because the offense at times was very pedestrian, but goodness, the defense could score. It's like it was incredible every week that it seemed like State always found a way to get a non-offensive touchdown, and actually Cooper and Tim Nelson were a big part of that.
Yeah. So Jason, look that up. I think they scored 66 points that year, which is remarkable. And I could be wrong, but I think the defense scored 66 points that year in 98. We'll have to go back and look at that. Steve Robertson made a great point bringing up, and I hadn't even mentioned it this morning, that Jackie Sherrill and the 98 team was recognized, and that was the highlight of the night at that and Chris Parson at Davis Wade Stadium. All right, Steve. So our fans that are listening want more. Do you, if you had to bet $100 on Rogers and Marks playing, I'll throw it out one more time. If you had to bet money, which way would you go on Rogers and Marks playing in College Station this weekend?
I'd make individual bets. I would bet that Woody plays, and I would probably not bet on Will Rogers one way or the other. I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't expect it. But I do expect Woody Marks to play this week. And the thing about both of those guys, you talk to everybody involved in football, those kids desperately want to play. It's like to see the team struggle offensively, and they feel like they can help, and they should be able to help. That's a very, very difficult thing, especially for guys that this may be their last year on the college level. But, I do think Woody Marks plays this week, and, I think State's got to have him. It's like as hard as some other kids play, they just don't have the talent vision that Woody Marks does. And so getting him back, I think, gives State a puncher's chance. But you're going to need some help from A&M to win this weekend. And maybe a third-team quarterback can give it to you from their side. But that defensive front is so strong. And you saw that Saturday. You really did. In that ball game, it was very offensive. But there's some dudes up front on the A&M defensive line. And so you got to think about it's going to be a very physical ball game, probably be a short ball game, low-scoring ball game, and everybody will walk away feeling like they just heard fingernails on a chalkboard, but somebody's going to get a win.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Steve Robertson, Gene's Page, the Boneyard Podcast, joining us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Appreciate it, Steve.
See ya.
That interview was brought to you by the Pork Belly and Chorizo Nachos at Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Starkville, and Tupelo. Steve also mentioned the Philly Spring Rolls, which are also damn good. But I went to Bulldog Burger last week, and I got the jalapeno popper burger.
Ooh.
It was delicious. And that thing's hot in a good way.
You put jalapenos on a burger?
Yeah.
You're going to have to hold me back.
I know.
That's
I
that's one of the best toppings.
So yesterday morning, I got up pretty early, and I went to Bluto's for breakfast in Starkville, and they do an avocado toast.
Ooh.
And a side of scrambled eggs, and I got it to go. I just drank coffee at the bar and waited.
Yeah.
I got home. I got the jalapenos out, put it on the avocado toast, then put the scrambled eggs on the toast.
Come on.
Yeah.
I think that you want to make me jealous right now. I think that's what you're doing.
Well, you had a big birthday party yesterday. Hang on. Let's talk about that. The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Tom Lugan Bill will join us at 9:30. Lugs will talk Ole Miss, A&M, and Ole Miss, Georgia. And maybe a little what Bama pulled off this. I don't think they're going to stumble twice. I mean, they got Kentucky and Auburn. I don't see it. I think they'll smash. They'll be down because they just played LSU. I mean, not as, the kids can't get up every single weekend, but they'll take care of business and go on to Atlanta. We're going to get a Bama. We thought we may get Ole Miss, I guess a while back, maybe LSU, but it's going to be a Bama Georgia SEC championship game. Ole Miss could still finish 11-1 if they upset Georgia this weekend as 11.5-point dogs. Right out of the gate on Circa, it went from 10 points to 11 points, and now it's at 11.5. I'm looking at the Caesar line right now, but bottom line, Ole Miss is in the process of having their most magical season that they've had in modern football. That includes Freeze in 14-15. It includes Kiffin 2 years ago. I can't think of another one. I mean, they've only won 10 games a couple of times since 1970. So Lane's going to do that again this year. Twice in 4 years.
Oh, I hope he stays. Please keep Lane Kiffin. Please keep him. Which I know is the exact opposite of what people were saying after going on the skid at the end of last season.
I know.
But
I remember my text line last year.
It was fire everybody, burn it down.
It was serious. It was heated.
And now it's, guys, all praise. All praise.
He's up there. He's walking on water, man.
And I asked you earlier, and I'm interested to see what you think. And this is a big if Ole Miss does beat Georgia,
okay,
is that bigger than either of the two Alabama wins? Especially the one I'm really comparing it to is beating Alabama at Alabama. Because that never happens. For Ole Miss, at least. I mean, they lost.
Is it bigger than the 2015 Bama win if you beat Georgia this weekend?
Back-to-back champs?
That was a huge win and huge. It may be, man. It may be.
That means that
you got less losses. Okay,
Yeah.
It was a weird year. You had lost to Memphis and Florida.
We lost to Arkansas that year.
Yeah. Your worst case scenario is going 10-2. If you beat Georgia, you're going 11-1. Maybe it's because I'm in the middle of it, in the thick of it, but I'm thinking yes. But I don't know, man. Saban, the big mighty Saban.
True, the GOAT. I mean,
maybe at the end of the year, if Kirby wins it again.
Very true.
And does what Saban hasn't done.
I mean,
wins
three in a row. I mean, Ole Miss has been the blemish on national champions 3 times.
Bartu says they can't win it. He said Georgia's defense is the worst defense they've had.
Wow.
I mean, they're not bad. They're just not number 1, 2, or 3 in defensive scoring efficiency.
But if Ole Miss does beat Georgia, I understand you were talking about how Bartu said that Bama has to lose twice in order for Ole Miss to Ole Miss has to be in the SEC championship and beat Georgia again to get in. But I'm just
to get the Yeah, because game control has not been your friend. Okay, so
Yeah.
so the committee loves blowouts, and you're winning, and it is amazing. But if you're all right, you're going to the college. For our listeners, Jason's talking about the college football playoff, and the close win against LSU, and the close win against Arkansas, and the close win against A&M.
Yeah.
They're all about game control. Now, they did they did move the field goal post for this last ranking, putting Georgia number 2, and not Florida State. I think it's a head scratcher, but it's still going to play out.
Yeah, I just don't see how, if Ole Miss does go 11-1, doesn't make the SEC championship, if there is a one-loss team in there, how is it not Ole Miss? I mean, I could see it being Texas too. I could see Texas being, if there's going to be a one loss, I could see Texas being in there. But I just don't know how.
You've still got Michigan and Ohio State that are coming down the stretch. You still got Florida State. I mean, you just got a lot of teams here that haven't knocked themselves out yet.
True. And then if even Ole Miss does win, then Georgia has one loss. It's getting spicy here.
Okay.
I think the waters are churning just a little bit.
Okay.
I think something could happen.
You're manufacturing something.
Yes.
Okay.
I am I'm visioning success. That's what I'm doing. Envisioning success for Ole Miss.
Well, you're already successful.
You beat Georgia. No, I'm greatness is
got it.
There we go.
It.
Envisioning greatness.
Okay.
For the Rebs.
All right.
It's got to happen. I mean,
if there was ever a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be now, because Georgia and Bama could be in a different space next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about them not being dominant offensive, defensive scoring efficiency, things like that. And you would have to believe another team's going to get their stuff together in the offseason. I don't know who. LSU?
Yeah. Good money would be on LSU.
Hugh Freeze will get Auburn going. And we'll see what happens with A&M. Can you imagine if A&M, I mean, people think that Mississippi State's going to make a move. I mean, our text line is unanimous. Have you seen a text that says bring back Arnett?
Not one.
Okay.
Not one.
We've had a bunch of them. I can't keep up with all of them, but can you imagine if A&M's going to drop $75 million on Jimbo Fisher and another $15 to $20 million on the support staff and move off him?
It's a lot of cheddar. But
then go get a dude for
Yeah.
$10 million and support staff for another $15 to $20 million.
Just don't touch my coach. Stay away from my coach, please.
Stay away from Lane Train. We are the Out of Bounds Show. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. National Nachos Day. Brought to you by the Pork Belly and Chorizo Nachos at Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Starkville, and Tupelo. And don't forget about the Philly Spring Rolls. 2 delicious appetizers. Pair it with some Stella Artois or Key City beer at Bulldog Burger.